So hello everyone there, I'm LoneWolf360, and if it wasn't obvious from the title and previous segments of this video, just in case if you're watching this from Striking Sarcophagus, because this is a collab segment, today I'm going to be talking about a moron which apparently believes that Dragon Ball Z is racist, and unironically, I'm not even a fan of this show, but I can still find many of the flaws within his points. So how about we just get into the video, shall we?
So now, let's revisit Riz's statement that Dragon Ball Z is the story of black men in America. When Z begins, we find out Goku, who was sent to Earth as a baby and had his memory wiped by a bump on the head, is a Saiyan, a member of a proud alien race, the strongest warriors in the universe, who were conquered by, and now do the bidding of, the ultra-powerful, despite never working a day in his life, Lord Frieza. This holds obvious parallels between American slaves and a very general construct of whiteness in America.
So one of the first points which this man tries to bring up is that the Saiyans working for Frieza is a direct comparison or direct correlation to black people working for white people involuntarily back when slavery was legal. And which in that case, how the hell does that even make sense? Like, there's not even like a sign of slavery from the context which you brought up. If anything, these guys are only working for Frieza for the sake of doing so. And once again, this is coming from someone which hasn't watched the show. So with the context that's provided, it's kind of hard to convince me that the show is apparently racist for that apparent reason. But let's keep going.
Frieza even goes as far as to openly espouse his hatred for Saiyans and call them monkeys, which is a common racial slur popularized by H&M. And it makes sense since Saiyans do have tails that allow them to literally turn into powerful and uncontrollable grade 8.
Now, I wasn't expecting to make another response as quickly when it came to the first one, but his other context to why Dragon Ball Z is apparently racist is because the Saiyans are called monkey as an insult. Even though from the context that he literally provided that these people have monkey tails and turn into giant, uncontrollable, and powerful monkeys. Once again, it's kind of hard to understand or try to get the context that the show is racist when the stuff which he's made as a point for racism is just kind of being pulled out of his ass by that point, while at the same time still trying to bring some context for the show to prove his argument.
Now, it gets a little more complicated though when you consider that as the story moves on, every Saiyan either dies or has his tail removed. And later into the series, we see new Saiyans being introduced that don't have tails to begin with. Now, just like depictions of black men may have been unintentionally insensitive, the idea of removing tails and thus the ability to take the grade 8 form and thus effectively civilizing Saiyans and making them more permanently human may be an unintentional commentary on attempts to civilize and westernize Africans. But then there's more.
So, for the point which he tries to bring up and trying to say that Saiyans losing their tails and not being able to become great monkeys is a direct correlation to black people and other foreigners trying to be more civilized or being forced to become more civilized or whatever, is honestly a very dumb point. Not only because it doesn't really have a common, connection, but aside from that, I think this guy hasn't really watched anime or hasn't even seen any long-running series when it comes to a universe and its general way of changing. Let's talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example. And even though it's not an anime, I still think you get my point. So, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, we all know about the 4 basic elements: earth, fire, wind, and air, and we all know about what you could do with them, especially if you're a master. But in that show, we only got to see a few things which from time to time would change, like blood bending, metal bending, or even some other form of bending which we haven't seen. But then there's the Legend of Korra, which obviously changes things and makes it to where the world is way more different from what we've known, mainly due to the fact that so much time has changed to where people aren't just using the same 4 basic elements again and again. And of course I could apply this to other things, but that was just an example of how the world or certain universes change as time goes on. So the fact that this guy automatically blames this or decides to go connect this to racism is honestly just very stupid, especially when if you're someone which watches anime. I think you should be the one person that knows that as time goes on, the rules of a universe change depending on what context it is, but let's keep listening to this dumb man's points.
We all know by now that Goku later goes on to defeat Frieza on planet Namek after he goes Super Saiyan for the first time. If you didn't know that, you've had like 20 years, I feel nothing. A Saiyan gets really mad, and then his strength increases anywhere from 2 to 100 times depending on who you ask and in what language, and in this form, his hair turns blonde and his eyes turn blue, and he gets deals modeling for Hugo Boss and starring in Volkswagen commercials. Okay, obviously my point is that Super Saiyans are basically atomic Aryans, and no, I'm not saying alien in a super racist way, I'm talking about Hitler's dream children.
Now, in all honesty, the statement that Goku's super form is a perfect representation of a powered-up Aryan boy is honestly just kind of funny, to be honest. And the main reason why I say that isn't because I'm mad and I'm just laughing at the stupidity, but it sounds like the type of thing that a troll on the internet would say just to spite or piss off one of those hardcore weebs or Dragon Ball fans. Like, no, seriously, the fact that this is actually a point within his video, like he's trying to be serious about, is honestly just sad, especially when he's trying to prove with all of his might that Dragon Ball is racist, even though it's
My
not.
point is that regardless of intent, it is true that with inherent anti-blackness, there usually comes inherent pro-whiteness. And I think Goku's arc from meeting his older brother Raditz to avenging Krillin on a dying planet Namek is indicative of that dynamic. So once again, I agree with RZA, but only partially. I believe DBZ, particularly the Saiyan Saga, is the story of black men in America, and it was probably intended to be a positive take on it. But from where I'm standing, it looks to me more like the story of a handful of black men, the ones who reach a level of power or success that allows them the luxury of being more than just their race.
Now, to end off this video, because the rest of the video is just kind of made up of bullshit, I'm gonna be honest here. I feel like this guy doesn't get the point of Dragon Ball Z. Hell, I haven't even watched the show myself, but from what I've heard from multiple people which I know that are friends which are really big fans of the show, the point of Dragon Ball Z isn't about race. It's not about Kanye West or Muhammad Ali or O.J. Simpson or none of the people which he brings up in this video. To assume that something that isn't based upon racial issues or just racial things in general and just say that it is just very dumb. And as someone which is black myself, it kind of ashames me, to be honest, to see that people like this unironically exist, and to see that people like this will unironically agree with this ideology, that every single thing that isn't seeming like it's related to black people on a surface level just is for some apparent made up reason. At the end of the day, this guy is pretty dumbfounded, and I'm surprised that this video hasn't gotten more backlash than it did, especially considering the fact that it seems to try to be controversial on purpose and stuff like that. But that's all I have to say. I'm LoneWolf360, your local furry, and I will see you guys in another video. Thanks for tuning in.